I started property investing back in 2007. I worked obviously in investment banking at that particular time, but I kind of knew during that time I wouldn't have enough money through working for someone else to have enough when I retired. So I started looking at other avenues. I started looking at investing in stock and other things, but property resonated. There is some big compliance aspects when I work at places like Goldman Sachs to actually invest in stock. So property was easy solutions. You can use leverage, you can buy good quality assets in a good cycle. And then I saw a lot of people had made extreme wealth. So if we fast forward, I've been doing this my whole time. I hit financial freedom myself. And I realized, okay, I'm young enough. I can't just play golf every day. I decided to sort of set up the business. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of kind of like rhetoric in the media where people focus on the wrong things. And I really wanted to sort of keep it simple. And I wanted to help people get to those sort of goals and build wealth via property, but do it the right way. And so that's where Property Strats was born. So the actual name Property Strats comes from when I was at Goldman. I was an equity strat. Strats is short for strategist. And hence I was trying to come up with a name for the company, hence Property Strats, which is short for strategist. So that's where it all comes from. Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say there's three main avatars. And so first off, I get really quite inspired by this first off avatar, first time investors, and they could be in their 20s, 30s or whatever, a little bit overwhelmed. There's so much information out there, so many social media posts, property chat forums, et cetera, podcasts. And they want to get started. They don't know how. They want to build a team. They want a bit of trust with people who can help them on their journey. And so that's one. Secondly, maybe it's families like in their 30s, 40s, maybe young families, maybe got one or two properties, want to sort of scale to the next level, maybe hitting a bit of a serviceability barrier. And so they come and maybe a little bit time poor here, obviously family demands, job's busy, trying to level up a little bit in their job. And so they're kind of trying to find the right partner to work with. And so we see a lot of them coming and sort of seeing, well, how can I get to the next level? Probably the third group of the high net worth individuals, they already kind of made or built quite a bit of wealth in property. They may be looking for kind of maybe more complex sort of strategies like buying blocks of units, commercial properties, those sort of things. But they kind of know what they're looking for. They're much more confident. They're looking for their right partner. And so they come to us and then just go, okay, we want to do this, and this. And then they come to you. So I'd say largely it's those three sort of avatars that we're seeing. And I love working with all of them. Yeah, and there's no shame doing that whatsoever. Like if you're busy, you've got a young family, and you're working Monday to Friday, that should be your main sort of goal. Level up in your career, because the more sort of money you earn, that's more serviceability that you get. And so if you've got a young family as well, do you really want to spend Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, depending on what state you are, going around sort of opens and trying to find out what's what? And you're going to be competing against buyers agents who are doing this professionally, who are kind of in the market every day. And as soon as that sort of listing comes up, like we're looking at it already and evaluating it. It might have already been off market. We might have already evaluated it and passed it. And then you've got to sort of then compete with other sort of first home buyers, et cetera. And so if you want to do that's totally fine. There's enough information out there. But if you want to sort of keep your weekends intact, there's professionals out there who can help. And we're helping so many people do this. Yeah, 100%. I mean, just look at golf. If you take the world number one, Scotty Scheffler, best golfer since Tiger Woods, won everything out there. He hires a dedicated putting coach just to get that 1% better. And then his results go to the next level. So if the best people in the world are doing it in their discipline, then why shouldn't other people do it when it comes to sort of their financial future, if you will? So it's a boutique buyers agency. So we really want to understand what you're trying to accomplish via property investing. So everyone who comes through, they have a first onboarding session, and that's with myself. And there we're trying to get a sense of where you are in your journey. We'll talk and we'll try and find out what their end goal, why property. So a lot of people talk about passionate about property, but it's passionate what property is going to enable you where you got to get to. And so some people might say, okay, I want to buy 20 properties, but why do you want to buy 20 properties? Like just to brag at the barbecue? What I think people need to sort of check ego at the door, look at kind of what their end goal is, and that might be passive income, maybe buying my dream PPOR, maybe just did it if it is, keep scaling wealth. But once we've got an idea on that, then we can start talking about plans and where to buy and what type of assets going to help you. Because you might have a couple of properties and then you might have negative cash flow. So you might need a bit of serviceability to be able to get the next property. Or if you're starting out, you might have no equity or no capital growth. And so you need good capital growth. So it's got to be the right asset. So that onboarding session is critical for us to sort of define the strategy going forward. So once we've kind of signed this up, we've got we develop personal sort of dashboards in Monday.com CRM, and so that's how we present the deals. We'll set up a WhatsApp chat between us and one of my sources on the team, and so you have access to two very successful property investors who've got 8-figure portfolios to sort of bounce questions off. We'll present the properties in this particular form. We put Loom videos together about the pros and cons when we see a decent property that kind of aligns to the brief and why that's maybe a good fit for yourself. If something's then looking good, we'll obviously negotiate. If it's off market, we'll have a good price negotiated. Generally, you have 24 hours to let us know. That's not us trying to get people into deals. It's just the fact that agents get itchy feet. They want to pick up their comm. And then if they send it to another buyer's agent or they send it to another investor, that price might go up 20 grand very quickly. And so once we've found a good deal, you've looked at the kind of, the information that we'll have on the Monday.com board, you watch the video, we can then jump on a quick call, talk about the pros and cons of why we think it's a good deal, and then we can see if we can get that property secured for you. And the other thing to talk about as well is each of the properties that we will present, we would have inspected ourselves. Our team have construction backgrounds, so we're kind of looking at properties that aren't going to fail BNP, where there might be a bit of value add down the track, potentially, or set and forget, depending on brief. And so we are looking at all of these properties ourselves. It's not all looking on a desktop and then just buying sight unseen. Yeah, no, and that's what we try and do. There's people who want to get their hands dirty, so to speak, and add a bit of sweat equity uplift to properties. Some people who just want to set and forget type. No client's the same. There's different budgets. There's different sort of outcomes that people are trying to achieve. And so keeping it boutique means that we can have better options for people and keep that acquisition time down as quick as we can. Well, I think largely what it boils down to is what we talked about before. Like if you're focused in your job, you're working 50, 60 hours a week, you've got a young family, you've got responsibilities, even if it's not a young family, like if they've got sports at the weekend. And so if you've then got to go and find the suburbs, or not just the suburbs, the areas in Australia that maybe are at a start of a cycle, it might sound easy to some people just saying that, but everyone's at a different stage in their journey. And so we've got a 3-stage approach. We look at kind of those markets that are in early stages in cycle. Then we have a bit of data analysis where we pick the undervalued suburbs, fundamental analysis that goes into that. And then obviously then from a micro level, finding the best asset that you can find. And to have all of that, like that, we've got so many people working on this. So you think of all the manpower that we've got going into that, for you to then sort of have to kind of expend the same sort of level of hours. And then we're also talking about 20 years between myself and my team who've kind of been doing this. And then with that combined experience for yourself to then level up and then be able to sort of compete and know exactly those areas to get to is a massive undertaking. And then actually finding the deal, of course. And then as soon as a property comes online, if you're going to be at work, for example, we would have already called them if it's a really good deal, or if it's not us and maybe another buyer's agent. So there's a lot you're up against. And so all of that then becomes frustrating if you can't transact. The more you then leave it, that market might get away from you. And then by having a professional in your corner, you might have secured that asset in the suburb that you really wanted to get. And already the property's starting to grow. So it's an important thing to talk about. And to be quite frank, probably the biggest benefit of having a buyer's agent, and especially someone who has walk before and has built the sort of size of portfolio that you're looking to get to, is taking action. And like, you can talk about all the data roonies or whatever that you've got out there, but it's not going to get you to your next goal. You've got to buy something. And the longer you leave it, I'll give a quick example. So I worked with a client a few years ago, budget starting off, wanted to buy in Brizzy, sort of 700,000, saw a really good property in the first week. It ticked all the boxes, but again, just wasn't too sure, first property or whatever. I'm not suggesting people take the first property, but I'm just going to give an example. But then we went into analysis paralysis for a little bit, and it was 6 months before the right property, before we pulled the trigger again. That property was then worth 800,000. Now, I'm not saying every market's going to do that, but time's money. And so really having a buyer's agent in your corner helps you take action. Another example, just quickly, let's look at Geelong, for example. Like, it's very popular at the moment. It's got some of the highest population growth numbers in the country. Now, you can see that the stock's pretty tight there. And so the off markets are quite hard to come by. But then, like, with relationships with agents to try and get them across the line, that's something, even if a property is online, that generally shows the strength of a good market. Now, you might just think, I can look at realestate.com and buy that property. But, you know, because we've got relationships with the agent, that means we've already got a head start on yourself. And then if you take Geelong as well, like, the soil's pretty sandy out there, so pretty reactive. So there's a lot of properties there that have building and pest problems. And so that's another thing you've got to consider. So, you know, whether you want to sort of go through that sort of pain, buy a property, pay a building a pesticide fee or whatever, and then, you know, potentially have to exit because of structural problems there. And so a buyer's agent can help you take action, get a good deal, and get something that's likely to be structurally sound. So there's numerous sort of benefits that we can add here.